Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to have a bit of fun as we always do when coming up to the weekend, and today I'm going to talk about some kits that I've really enjoyed painting and I think everyone else should go out and grab and paint up. These kits have a wealth of opportunity to do a bunch of different things, and I'll talk a little bit about each of them in this video, but this is going to be 10 Age of Sigmar kits I reckon you need to paint. Number 1, from the Gloomspite Gitz range, I have the Gobbapalooza. I painted up this kit last year and it was a ton of fun. After painting a Gloomspite Gitz army where I painted 100 and more of the shooters and stabbers, which are all very basic and standard, I then painted some squigs and they were pretty fun. But for me, the epitome of painting Gloomspite Gitz models is the Gobbapalooza. Each of these models just has so much unique character to it and can give you a wealth of fun and enjoyment in painting up these models. If you're really looking to test your skills, try new things, and really just go to town with your painting, I don't think there's a better kit Games Workshop produce than the Gobbapalooza. They've got so much unique things about them and just a ton of different things to try. I mean, you've got glass bottles, you've got smoke, you've got bone, you've got big plates of cloth, you've got living organisms that aren't the grots themselves, and all the grots themselves have really great facial features which can be really well picked out. They've also got a bunch of just little bits and pieces. I love all the mushrooms everywhere. You've got the Git with all his different things hanging on his little backpack there, and even the cauldron and all the metallic stuff around him as well. This kit just offers a wealth of things you can do, and for me it is almost probably the best kit to paint that Games Workshop produce. Number 2, from Ogor Mawtribes, sticking with destruction here, I've got the Frostlord on Thundertusk. Now, personally, I prefer this model to paint over the Stonehorn. I think the facial features on the Thundertusk just have a lot more to them than the Stonehorn. The Stonehorn is very one-dimensional in that aspect. You've got a ton of good dynamics with the face there, and you've got, normal bone tusk, but you can also do the stone features, I guess, with the giant, mammoth elephant-like tusk this model has. What's great about this model is it's got a ton of different textures to play around with. You've got bone, but you've also got the hard scales and metallic parts on the front sort of armor plating on the Thundertusk himself. You got the straps, and you've got even the cool icicle bits and work down there you can do. The Ogre himself allows you to play with skin tones and stuff like that, as does all the big scarring parts on the Thundertusk, which does have a giant scar rent into one of its side on the model, which allows you to really play around with that as well. The Ogre is on his big bare skin parts, does leave you open for some really cool freehand with tattoos and stuff like that. And even the Thundertusk, I've done some stuff where you've painted on what do you call them? Cave paintings on the tusk of the Thundertusk as well. You've got hair in there, you've got all these different little bits and pieces, and even the little saddle there has a ton of extra bits and pieces you can attach to it to really give this model a bunch of fun things to do around it when you're painting it. Number 3, from Warhammer Underworlds, particularly the Beastgrave starter set, I have Skaeth's Wild Hunt. Now, really, I could pick any number of the Warhammer Underworld warbands, but I've just finished up a show talking with Dan, 9-inch Charge Dan, about this particular warband and how it evokes so many memories for me. For me, there's a ton of different things you can do with this warband and a ton of different parts you can play around with when painting. But for me, personally, this was nostalgic for me. I'm an old Wood Elf player and I loved painting this model. It really gives me vibes of a ton of different Wood Elf characteristics, along with some brand new bits and pieces here and there. But it's got, the different parts of trying to meld human and beast together. It's even got a full-on beast and the little lion creature as well. And you've got to play around with some really cool things like the thatching on Skaeth's armor, and even on the armor of the other Kurnothi within this warband. You can really play around with a bunch of different things, and I think this warband really takes on different sort of skin hues really well. Whether that be really pale skin, dark skin, or even some sort of coloured variation, this is a really fun thing to do. What's cool too is there's a lot of bare skin, and the faces are really nice and take on both makeup like eyeshadow and such, or even war paint on them as well. Skaeth himself can have cool war paint done on his actual hindquarters, on the horse deer part of him, and the little lion there has a ton of stuff you could do, like me even doing some drawings or some binding markings or something on him as well. Number 4, going on Sylvaneth again, I've got the Spirit of Durthu. For me, this is the funnest Tree Lord variant to build out of that kit. I really love the fact that he's got the sword and you can do all sorts of glowing effects. And it's particularly a scheme like this that they've got shown here in the picture that I really like doing on Durthu. It's also the added skulls and I guess the really gnarled sort of worn sort of damaged look that the Spirit of Durthu has over the others that I really think gives him that edge in being the coolest one to paint. You can do all the normal things you do on a Tree Lord with Durthu, but you've also got the things like the bone that you can add with cool textures into him, and also the sword just really gives you that nice big piece to really play around with some cool colour trying. Blending with that sword is really fun to do. I've tried it myself. I'm not the best at blending, but it was fun. And also doing some really cool glowing stuff on both his mouth and all the runes with a darker scheme is just really fun to do in general with Durthu. He's a great model and I really enjoyed painting him a lot. From the Sylvaneth to their most hated of allies, we've got the Maggotkin of Nurgle, and in particular, the Putrid Blightkings. Now, the first thing that should be said about this kit is not only was it fun to paint, but is an absolute joy to build. I don't think there's any kit in Age of Sigmar that I enjoy building more than Putrid Blightkings. They were just so much fun. This kit has a ton of variation, despite being a more modern kit with dynamic posing, which is really awesome. There's just so many bits and pieces you can do putting them together that really it just makes them so much fun to paint in the end. Nurgle in general is fun to paint because you get to play around with like washes and all different hues of skin and bruises and rot and all that sort of stuff to really make your models look great. Rust and all that sort of stuff as well on your weapon, decay and tarnishing, all that is really fun as well, and just a bunch of different techniques you can try out on these models. But really, it's literally like painting a set of characters, this box set, which is just so much fun. There's so much detail on every model. You're always finding something different to do on each and every one, and they really give you tons of enjoyment. Number 6 from the Disciples of Tzeentch, Kairic Acolytes. So last year during lockdown, Kairic Acolytes and a Tzeentch army were the first thing I actually painted up during lockdown last year. And they were a ton of fun. The Kairic Acolytes are really simple to paint at their base, but have a ton of cool little details that make them quite fun to do as well. You can smash these models out in a pretty decent sort of time frame, as they do have, I guess, major sort of colours that apply to the general models over and over, so they really work well in batch painting. But this, when I did it, was a rather enjoyable batch paint. I found just all the little details, the things like the gems and stuff, just really helps get you moving along the models really nicely and quick. And they've got nice large flat areas. If you take these models in the right sort of stages and steps at a time, they come together really quickly and really fun. Generally, I started with the skin, then moved to the armor, the cloth, and then all the little details around that. And they've also got some cool different pieces in there that make them fun to paint as well. The Kairic Acolyte with the little scroll, you can do all sorts of things with that, and building parchment or making it look like flesh as well. But the Vulshark is another interesting bit of the kit, which really gives you some time to play. Birds, I think, are always fun to paint. They come up really nicely for very little effort, and I always enjoy painting anything avian with lots of feathers, because you can get a really good looking model of a high standard for very little effort, and that makes them fun to do. Number 7, Cities of Sigmar, my favourite faction personally, and I've got the Nomad Prince. This is the only model I've ever done for a painting competition personally. I'm a decent painter, I like to think. I'm never anything fantastic, but this model I went all out on. He was an absolute ton of fun to paint. For me, it has everything. It's got nice large open areas that lend to really good freehand. It's got the shield with thatching, it's got the horns, you've got bone, you've got metallics with the armor, and you've also got like leather work, you've got cloth, you've got a ton of things, and you've also got a cool little avian creature there again, which takes on color really well and can have some fun things to do. All in all, this model, whether you call it Araloth or a Nomad Prince or a Glade Lord, whatever you want to call it, it's a ton of fun to paint this kit. There's just so many little things that it does so right, and so many little details on it that just make it so much fun to paint. Number 8, and I think this is the funnest Stormcast Eternals model to paint, the Knight Azyros. Now, I do really like the Castellan and Veritant, but the one thing they lack for me is that lantern being open. I really want to see the inside of the lantern to paint, and the Knight Azyros is the only one with a lantern that's got it open that you can enjoy. This is what makes him the best Stormcast model to paint. It's that lantern and the ability to do a whole bunch of glowing effects around it that really make it fun. On top of that, he's got the big wings like the Prosecutors, which are fun to paint. You can do them in a myriad of different ways. And Stormcast in general are pretty fun to paint, in all honesty. Large flat areas of colours might seem boring, but they come together really nicely and quickly, and you can make them look from either anything from basic for beginners, which makes models really fun to paint if they're easy, but also experienced painters can do really fantastic things on those big plates of armour. I think you can do a lot. You can even try and do non-metallic metals on them and a whole bunch of different stuff. They lend themselves so well to so many different things. It's why Stormcast are great fun to paint in general, but the Knight Azyros is done a little bit better than most of them. Number 9, you should have seen another Cities of Sigmar unit coming. You know me, I love the army. But for me, this is probably my favourite Cities of Sigmar model I've ever painted. The Freeguild General on Griffon was just so much fun to paint. It's a fantastic model despite its age. The rider and the mount both look absolutely stunning, and it's got a ton of different things you can do with it. First of all, it's got the avian aspect, which I said I really like. I actually went and applied Games Workshop's colour scheme that they did for Kairos Fate with his wings to the front end of mine, and it looks awesome with just a bunch of weird, wacky sort of purples and pinks. It's awesome. But on top of that, you've got just a bunch of things you can play with. Because you've effectively got a monster that's made out of 2 other creatures, it really has the ability to have these 2 contrasting halves to it, which is what you can sort of see in the picture here of Games Workshop's own scheme. You've got the nice brightly warm coloured back end, but you've also got much more dull warm colours on the top end with the browns and then orange on the back end. And it's all sort of tied in by the tiger stripes there. On top of that, you've got a rider who has some really cool bits about him. He's got a nice shield, hammer, and he's also got all the different plumage on top of his helmet, which you can go all out on. As you can see, they've used a bunch of different colours here. You've got the front armour panel on the Griffon itself and the helmet there that all have a ton of different things you can do with them. And it's got, you know, a cool little rock on its base that you can do some different sort of colours and different stonework on as well. This, in general, is just a fantastic miniature in general and a ton of fun to paint. Number 10, and we've got another Cities of Sigmar unit, and this is one I've almost finished up currently, and I'm really enjoying painting it, and that is the Celestial Hurricanum kit. For me, I prefer painting this one over the Luminarch, although I've got my Luminarch on the way, so I'm a bit biased in that to paint up another Luminarch. We'll see how I go, but I have preferred doing this one out of the 2 so far. But for me, it's just all that orrery on top, that weird sort of mechanical clockwork magical mystery on top of it that makes it a ton of fun. Not only that, but inside the actual carriage there's a ton of detail you can play around with. This model is great painted into sub-assemblies, and the Hurricanum I have, I'm really unfortunate that I bought already built. But that's not an issue. I'd love to get another one and really give it a go, painting all that inside a lot easier. I mean, I managed to paint the one I've got, but it was taxing at times, but that didn't diminish from the fun of it. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do. It's got all these little details all out, and it's covered in like little just bits of like glyphs and emblems and embosses and all that sort of stuff. Not to mention, you've also got like the wizard on top, who is a ton of fun to paint, and you've got his little helper that sits at the back there as well. The horses are really nicely plated in their armor, and you can do a bunch of different things with that, whether metallics or non-metallics. It's just so many different details on this model that just make it a ton of fun to paint. I'd love to hear from everyone in the comments though, what has been your favourite model to paint, and what is something you'd recommend painting to someone else? Even if they don't collect that army, what is a model you reckon someone who even maybe is not that big a painter would enjoy painting? What gives you joy? Anyway, leave some comments down below and let us know. Might even pick up a few of the more popular answers. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by coming and joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube as well, go check out my featured channel section, which contains a bunch of other fantastic Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from battle reports, tactical videos, lore videos, painting tutorials, and more besides that. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Cowspawn, James Crowder, and Andrew Bowen. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking once again on the links down in the description of the video to either YouTube members or Patreon. Thank you all for supporting the channel though, watching the content. Have a nice day, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.